Hey, what's up, everybody? Tony Leon, man among men. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for tuning in with me today. And today I want to talk about some things that, man, some of us older guys we just can't wrap our heads around sometimes. It's just a matter of how much things have changed. Now, if you're in my age range, you're in my generation, you'll know where I'm coming from. Now, I'm 60 years old, and so over the course of time, some things have changed. And today we just want to talk about and reminisce and talk about a few things that just have changed and how different things can be. Now, one of the first things I want to talk about that has really changed over the course of time is dating. Now, man, here's something that blows my mind. Now, if you're a younger cat and you got a daughter and say, you may be like 25 or maybe you're 30, 35 or even 40, somewhere in there, and like you let your daughter go on a date. And so what I have seen is, men who have daughters who like 16 years old, maybe 13, 14, 15, 16, she's starting to date, and whatever the age is, and you let your daughter go on a date. This blows my mind, and this is what I've seen. I've seen where these young guys, they don't come to the house no more and meet the dad. What they do is they just text or DM the girl, then they pull a car up to the house. She go outside, walk down the driveway, jump in the car, and gone. And them two just gone. So you ask the dad, well, man, do you know the boy that your daughter went out with? Well, man, I saw I saw a Facebook post on him, or I saw his TikTok. So what? I saw his TikTok. So I'm like, oh, so you don't know this boy. You never met this boy. You just seen him on a video. Well, man, things have changed, and I trust her. I trust her. She's a good girl. She's a good girl. And I ain't knocking that. If that's the way you do it, man, hey, more power to you, brother. Go ahead and do your thing. Now, the only reason I'm talking about this and bringing these things up is just so that we can compare. Sometimes when you do things a certain way, you think that that's the way it's always been done. So for some of the younger guys out there, I want you to know that it hadn't always been done that way. So it ain't about whether I'm right or you wrong or you right, I'm wrong. It's not about that. It's just about there's another way to do it. Let me tell you about my first date. Man, I went to high school in Tallahassee, Florida. I went to Lincoln High School up in Tallahassee, and there was this girl I knew who went to school with us, and I wanted to go out on a date with her. So what I did was I asked her, hey, can I take you out sometime? And she said, well, yeah, Tony, I don't mind, but you got to come talk to my dad. So I said, all right. So I said, let's do this here. Go home and ask your dad, can I come talk to him sometime? Just tell him I want to talk to him, okay? So she said, okay, she'll go home and she'll talk to her dad. Now, I know what you think, and you're probably saying, well, why didn't you just pick up the phone and call him? Well, listen, man, this was back in 1981. And back in 1981, things were a little bit different. See, I was 16 at the time. And back during those days, a 16-year-old just don't pick up the phone and call an adult man. It just didn't work that way. No, they didn't play those games back then. So as a 16-year-old, I was not allowed to pick up my phone and call a grown man. Just wasn't going to happen. Now, here's the thing. My daddy and her daddy were good friends. They was running partners. So I thought I'd go through the back door. So I asked my dad, I said, Dad, would you go talk to her dad? Because I want to take her out and ask her dad, would it be okay if I take her out? My dad said, no, son, you crazy. I ain't doing nothing like that. He said, you're going to have to go over there and you're going to have to talk to him yourself. So I said, all right, it is what it is. So I had to go over to her house and talk to her. So her daddy finally sent word back to the school through her that, yeah, I can come over and talk to him. So I went to their house to talk to her dad about taking her out. Now, when I went to their house, I went inside. It wasn't just her daddy sitting there, man. Their whole family was sitting there on the couch. And I had to sit there in front of the whole family, and I had to like struggle through this thing and say, I just want to take her out. And so, the daddy didn't give me no answer right then because that's just the way men did it right then. You know what I'm saying? So he didn't say nothing. He said, okay, we'll think about it and I'll get back and I'll let you know. And so what that meant was he was going to send word to her and she would bring it to school with me. So, eventually he sent word that, yeah, I can take her out. She came to school one day. Okay, my daddy said, yeah, you could take me out. And so we going to go out on a date. So you know what? But her family laid down the law. Her daddy said, okay, here's the time you pick her up. Here's the time you have her home. When I went to her house to pick her up, man, her whole family was out there on the porch. Dude, they all standing there with her. And I had to go pick her up. You know what I'm saying? And so then when he told me what time to bring her home and I was going to take her back home, the whole family, the whole family was there on the porch waiting on her to come home. I mean, it was just a different day and a different time, but it was just all about respecting a man's household. That was his daughter, that was his house, his way of doing things. And back then, you didn't dare take no girl nowhere without getting to know her father. And so those days are long gone. I get that now. And I get that young guys now, they don't really get to know dads no more. A lot of, and I get it. A lot of people don't have dads. They just got moms. But even with that, a lot of young cats don't even come meet the moms no more, man. They just come scoop the girl up and they gone. So that's something that, as an older guy, it's hard for me to understand that. I know it's done that way, and it's all good if you do it that way. Keep doing your thing, but understand there's another way it can be done. Here's another thing that has changed a whole lot since I was a kid. And, I don't know, rightfully so. Maybe it's right. I'm not sure how these things work. But I tell you, man, when I was a kid, we had no supervision. Me and my brother John, we was what they call back in them days, they call us latchkey kids. And so what that mean as a latchkey kid was that your parents gave you a key to the house. And when you got out of school, you just went home, you took your butt home, and you just went in the house and did what you had to do. You did what you were supposed to do. There was no adults, man. My mama was working, my daddy was working, and everybody on our block, their parents worked. And so we all would go home and everybody just went home, man. You had a key, you go home and you just did whatever it is you were supposed to do. There was no adult supervision, but nobody got in any trouble. It was all good. Everybody did what they were supposed to do. You would be amazed at what your kids can do if you cut them loose and let them do those things. But now I know, but nowadays, and this is something I just can't understand. Nowadays, they have what they call helicopter parents. And what that means is, man, these parents hover over these children and the kids can't do nothing. Kids can't go nowhere. They can't do nothing. Like right now, think about it. If you go outside and you drive down the street and you see like a 8-year-old kid walking down the street by himself, first thing you wonder is, well, wait a minute, what that kid doing out here by himself? Where's his parents at? Dude, when I was 8 and 9 and 10, my mama would send me to the store and tell me to take my brother with me. John was 5 years younger than me, so I'm 10, John 5, and we would walk to the store. My mama say, go, take your brother with you. And we just go. And my mama would just say, go. And she would let us go, and then we would come back. Now I don't know were times better back then. Is times worse now? Is people snatching kids? Were people snatching kids then? I don't know. I don't know how all that stuff worked, but I do know that back then, parents didn't hover over us and they expected a certain amount of stuff from us. During that time, like my mama would tell us to go home. We got out of school, we had to go home. We had to go home. We had to wash the dishes. You had to make sure the house was clean. You just had stuff, you had chores you had to do. You got to take the garbage out and you got to do all this stuff for your mama get home, And so things have really changed. Times have changed, and I ain't saying nobody's the fault. I don't blame nobody, man. Raise your kid the way you want to raise your kid. If you're a helicopter mom or a helicopter dad and you stand over your kids and you hover over them and you make sure that they're not alone one single second, one single minute of the day, and if that's the way you do things, do your thing. Man, do whatever makes you happy. It's all I'm saying is that there was a time when a 10-year-old could go to the store by himself. And I ain't talking about a store right across the street. I'm talking about get on the bicycle and you go way miles away from the house and go to the store. I remember we used to wake up, man, and we used to just get on our bicycles and go ride. And when we went riding, that meant we went riding. We didn't know where we was going. We didn't even know where we was going to end up at. My mama didn't even care. Man, our parents never looked for us. As long as we was back home when street lights came on, that's all that mattered. And I grew up in Sherwood. I grew up here in Jacksonville, Florida, over a place called Sherwood. I think our street, we lived on Spotswood Road when I was a kid. Matter of fact, the house was 9409 Spotswood Road, and that was our house over there, right across the street from the school. And we would just get on our bicycles and we would just take off and we would just ride and we would just be gone all day long. I had my neighborhood friends, we had Joe Davis and we had a dude named Tiggy and we had Pig, and you know how we had Robert C.C. Nod, how everybody had nicknames back then. That dude lived next door named 88. We call him 88 because he wore a jersey that had 88 on it and he never took it off. So people started calling him 88 and we never knew his name. But that's one of the things that have changed. Nowadays, parents hover over kids. Man, when we grew up, our parents just told us, just go. Just go and leave me alone. Don't come back to in the house. Just go and leave me alone. So that's a thing that has changed. Man, another thing that has changed, and I don't know if this is like good or bad. I'm not sure how this thing works, y'all, but another thing that has changed is when I was young, like say in my 20s, I remember when you went to get a job, I remember that there were people like your uncle could just walk you up to a place and start you working. You didn't have to fill out no papers or nothing, man. It was just, I guess things were just that loose back then. I remember one time I got a job driving a truck. A dude I knew took me to the boss, man. He said, hey, man, this dude could drive a truck. He said, you could drive a truck? I said, yeah, I could drive a truck. He chunked me the keys, said, okay, now you take that load there, wherever it's supposed to be delivered at, and then come on back. He said, look, man, just don't get in no accident or nothing now, but just come on back and then we'll do the paperwork when you get back. And it used to be like that. You go to a job, man, people could walk you into a plant and say, hey, this is my friend here, man. He looking for a job. And they say, you want to work? Okay, you go get on that line right over there. Y'all show him what to do, and then they'll do the paperwork later on. And so it was truly about, who you knew, if somebody could get you on, like today, man, this thing here, boy, you can't get nothing unless you got to go online and fill out all kind of paperwork and they do the background checks and all kind of stuff like that. Even when we were younger, I remember coming up and like, for instance, driver's license, you can have a driver's license in the state of Florida, then you can have a driver's license in the state of Georgia. So if you did something stupid here in Florida and they took your license, you can go to Georgia and get a license. And it was valid. And you could drive with the Georgia license, man. That's why, like back in the day when dudes used to do stupid stuff and get in all kind of trouble, or they was wanted, they would take off and run to another state, just take off. And you live in Jacksonville, Florida, and you wanted for something crazy. You take off and move to California, and nobody would know because there was no way for them to find out unless they came over to Florida. Stuff didn't travel that fast. You know what I'm saying? It just was like that, man. And so, but nowadays, things have changed totally different. So nowadays, everything is at at a button, touch of a button. Everything is at the touch of a button. And then no matter where you go, what you do, everybody knows where you at. Everybody knows what you do. And it is instantaneous now. When I was in the Marine Corps back in 1989, 91, somewhere up in there in the early 90s, when we was in the Marine Corps, the computer systems just wasn't jiving that fast like they are right now. So what we used to do as young Marines, you can get paid, like say you get paid on a Friday night. All right, paychecks hit at 12 o'clock on a Friday night and we get direct deposit. Well, what can happen is you can get your paycheck and you can go to the teller machine, right? And you can take all your money out the teller machine. Then you can get in the car and go down the street to the next teller machine. Then you could take your paycheck out again. Then you can go down the street, get in your car, and go to another teller machine on the other side of town. Then you could take your paycheck out again. We had the ability to take your paycheck out the teller machine 3 times. Now, they catch up with you eventually. And then, you're getting all kind of trouble. You got to pay all that money back. But like the machines and stuff, the computers wasn't syncing like that. So, I can take my money out and it take hours before the computer recognized that the money gone, and this computer told that computer. So by the time the computers did all that stuff, you can go to another bank, man, and take your money out again. But that was when these computers was first syncing up, man. And so stuff has really changed, man, like that. So, but it's all good though. Everything is good. I love it like it is. But just know that things haven't always been as automated as they are now. Man, I tell you something else though that'll trip you out. When back in the day when we used to look for jobs, now this will trip you out. Like right now, if you want a job, Indeed will send you something, or you send something to Indeed, you go online, you put a thing in, and you say, okay, I want a job. Then somebody hits you up with an email, say, okay, all right, we're hiring. And then, you want to do an interview, then they'll call you up and do an interview on the phone. I tell you, man, this is an amazing thing, because when we used to try to get jobs, especially like when I was a teenager, 16, 17, 18 years old, the way you got a job back then was this. You had to get in your car and go to the buildings. Whatever the buildings was, whoever the people were, you had to go to their buildings, and you had to walk into the buildings, and you had to ask them, can I have an application, please? Then they'll give you an application, and you go around to all these different buildings in your car and you collect these applications. Now, most of these companies would not let you fill the application out on the premises. They say you got to take it with you. So then you got to take all them applications and you go back home. Once you get back home, then you fill out all the applications. Then you got to get back in your car and go back to each individual building to drop the applications off. Now, the thing was, if they were going to hire you, they had to give you a phone call, right? So now what you had to do is you had to go home and you had to keep people off the phone. See, because back then they had a phone that was on the wall. And that phone on the wall, it'd take a busy signal. We didn't have nothing to take messages. There was no messages, man. They called and your phone, and if somebody was talking on the phone just went bong, 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 bong. You got a busy signal. So you had to tell everybody, okay, now I'm waiting on a job, man. So y'all don't get on the phone, stay off the phone, stay off the phone. And you had to wait on them to call. So there was no way to take messages, and you had to be right there at the time when they call so that you can get the phone to see even if you got the job. But things were different then, man. And so things are different now. Things are totally automated, and this is good. I'm telling you, this is good. This is excellent. I love the way it is now. But I'm just saying, just for those of you who don't know, that things used to be different. So, when you take a look at the way things are now, I want you to really appreciate what you have, because we used to have to get the newspaper. Yeah, man, you had to go by the Sunday newspaper. You brought the Sunday newspaper because that's when they put all the help wanted ads in it. So you get the Sunday newspaper, then you go through the help wanted section, and then you have to look and see who's hiring. They'll print it in the paper that whether they're hiring or not. Then once you get the paper and you circle all the other ads you want to follow up on, then you had to go to the buildings and talk to them people. So trying to get a job was really like a part-time job in and of itself. But things have changed. Things have changed in that way for the better. So I appreciate that, man, and things are really good now. So, man, think about those things and think about how good things have gotten. One more thing that has changed, and I don't know if this is for the better or for the worse. I really think it's for the worst, to be honest with you. But a thing that has changed is when I was a lot younger, when I was like in my 20s, and when you didn't have any money, you didn't go anywhere. See, when I was in my 20s, man, you worked a job, and like everybody had jobs, and you worked a job, and when you spent all your money, what that meant was you stopped moving. You had no money, so you just sat at home. You sat at home and you watched TV until the next Friday came when you got your next paycheck. And so if you had no money, you did nothing. But that's changed now. It's an amazing thing. You know, you can meet people right now who have no money. They got no money in their pocket and they still going and they still doing things and they still going places and they still taking trips. I mean, because you know, we so deep in debt, people just swiping and swiping and swiping and swiping. They have no money, dead broke to the world, but they still swiping. I know some of y'all are dead broke. You so broke, man, you don't know what to do. You going deeper in debt, but you gonna take that trip, right? You're gonna take that trip. You ain't staying home. You're gonna take that trip. You're gonna go hang out and do your thing because you're still swiping, you're still swiping, you're still swiping. But you know, that has changed. Because I tell you, man, when we were younger, if you had no money, you went nowhere. You flat broke, you stayed home. You couldn't get no gas, you couldn't get nothing to eat, you couldn't go out nowhere, you couldn't go to no nightclubs, you couldn't do nothing because you're dead broke. And when you had no money, man, we just stayed at home because there was nothing else to do. But those things have changed. Now, that's one thing I think has changed for the worse. And simply, man, because now, you know, you got people who don't have no money and they just keep on going. You got no money and you just keep moving. You got no money and you just keep swiping and you just keep swiping and you just keep swiping. So, you know, so there you have it, man. There are some things that have changed and things are a little bit different now than what they used to be. One more thing that I thought about. You know, here's something that, man, my mama used to get on me about. When we were young, it was a cardinal sin to go inside of a store and walk out that store without a bag and a receipt. Man, woo, I don't care what you brought, buddy, you better get a bag and you better get a receipt. You better not walk out that store without a bag and without a receipt. Yeah, they didn't play that, man. My mama and them, they did not play that because one of the things that happened was that was the only way that the proprietor of the store can truly tell if you paid for something. Yeah, I know it don't sound like a big thing. You're like, what? That ain't about nothing. But that's truly the way it was. They looked when you walked out the store because they figured all the bags were behind the counter and whoever worked the cash register had to give you the receipt. So if you had a bag and a receipt, you're good to go. But like even like right now, nowadays, you know, people buy their stuff and they just walk out, no bag and no receipt, man. I'm like, man, is you crazy? Well, you better get a bag. You know, all it takes is for one person to say, hey, he stole that. And then there you go, man. You're getting arrested and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But you know, things have changed, and those are some of the things that have changed over the course of the years in my life, you know. And so it ain't no big deal, but you know, just so you know, things haven't always been the way they are now. Things have greatly improved in a lot of areas, and in some areas, I think they haven't improved much at all. They've gotten worse. But those are some of the things that have changed over the course of years. And so, hey, man, go down to the comment section. Let me know about some of the things you've noticed that have changed in your lifetime. And maybe we can talk about some of those things in coming up videos. And so I thank you for tuning in with me. Hey, man, remember, you are a man among men, and there are very few like you. Now, my brother, I want you to go out and you live that out, and I'll see you in the next video.